Stop for a second, because if you've ever walked away from a woman wondering, was she feeling it too? There's a good chance the biggest answer wasn't hidden in her words. It was hidden in everything she did when she thought you weren't paying attention. And if you keep missing these moments, you'll keep believing opportunities never existed, when in reality, they slipped through your hands in complete silence. Most men are taught to look for certainty, a confession, a direct invitation, a crystal clear signal. But attraction rarely works that way. Mutual attraction often grows in the quiet spaces between conversations, inside lingering eye contact, awkward smiles, subtle changes in body language, and the strange tension that neither person seems willing to break. Here's the truth very few people tell you. When attraction is mutual, silence becomes louder than conversation. Suddenly, ordinary moments begin to feel unusually meaningful. A simple greeting carries emotional weight. A casual joke feels strangely personal. Even standing next to each other creates an energy that's difficult to explain, but impossible to ignore. The first sign is surprisingly simple. Both of you keep finding reasons to be around each other. Not dramatic excuses, not obvious pursuit, just repeated coincidence. You notice yourself drifting toward where she is without fully planning it. Then you realize she's doing something similar. She chooses the seat nearby. She stays in conversations just a little longer. She enters spaces where interaction becomes possible without making it seem intentional. Neither of you says, "I wanted to see you." Instead, your actions quietly reveal it. Psychologists often describe attraction as increasing attention. We naturally become more aware of people who matter to us. We notice their arrival before anyone else's. We remember small details they casually mentioned weeks ago. Our brain gives them priority without asking permission. That doesn't automatically mean romance. People can be friendly, outgoing, or naturally warm. The difference is consistency. If these moments happen once, they're probably meaningless. If they happen again, and again, and again, something deeper may be unfolding. The second sign appears when conversations don't want to end. Have you ever noticed how two people with mutual attraction seem unable to finish talking? The discussion technically ends. Then someone remembers one more thing. Another question appears, another joke, another excuse to keep the interaction alive for 60 more seconds. Neither person wants to be the first one to leave. Not because they're desperate, because being together feels easier than walking away. Time begins behaving differently. 5 minutes somehow become 30. A quick conversation unexpectedly stretches into something memorable. You don't force it. She doesn't force it. The interaction simply refuses to die. That's one of the strongest indicators that emotional comfort is beginning to grow alongside attraction. Real connection doesn't usually feel rushed. It feels effortless, and effortless moments are incredibly rare. Most conversations in life are functional. Mutual attraction quietly transforms ordinary conversation into something both people secretly hope lasts just a little longer. The mistake many men make is assuming attraction always announces itself with obvious flirting. In reality, it often whispers before it ever speaks. The men who recognize those whispers don't chase every interaction as proof of interest. They pay attention to patterns, stay grounded, and allow genuine connection to develop naturally instead of forcing certainty where it doesn't yet exist. The third sign is one most men completely overlook because they're listening to words instead of watching comfort. When someone feels emotionally drawn to you, they slowly begin lowering the invisible walls they keep around everyone else. It doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual. One day, she shares a small opinion she doesn't usually tell people. Another day, she laughs a little harder than she expected. Then she tells you a story that has nothing to do with impressing you, but everything to do with letting you see who she really is. That's when attraction starts becoming something deeper than curiosity. People protect themselves around strangers. They reveal themselves around people who make them feel emotionally safe. Now ask yourself something. Does she seem different when she's talking to you than when she's talking to everyone else? Not a completely different personality, just slightly softer, slightly more expressive, slightly more present. Those tiny differences matter, because attraction isn't only about wanting someone's attention. It's about feeling comfortable enough to let your guard down in their presence. And here's what's fascinating. If the attraction is mutual, you're probably doing the exact same thing without realizing it. You find yourself telling stories you hadn't planned to tell. You remember details you normally wouldn't mention. You care a little more about what she thinks of your opinions. You become just a little more honest than usual. Not because you're trying to impress her, because something about the conversation feels safe enough to be genuine. The fourth sign is the one that creates the tension everyone notices but nobody talks about. Both of you become unusually aware of each other. Imagine walking into a room full of people. You greet everyone. But somehow, before you've even finished scanning the room, you've already noticed whether she's there. Now imagine she does the same thing. Neither of you announces it. Neither of you admits it. Yet somehow your attention keeps returning to each other throughout the day. You notice when she laughs. She notices when you're unusually quiet. You notice when she's about to leave. She notices when you arrive. This isn't mind reading. It's selective attention. Our minds naturally prioritize people who have become emotionally significant to us. That's why their presence feels bigger than everyone else's. You don't need to stare constantly. In fact, mutual attraction often creates the opposite. Sometimes both people glance away quickly after making eye contact. Not because they're uninterested, because they're suddenly aware that the moment meant something. Eye contact becomes different. It lingers just long enough to feel intentional. Then one of you looks away. A few seconds later, it happens again. That silent exchange can say more than an entire conversation. Not because eye contact automatically means attraction, it doesn't. Some people naturally maintain eye contact. Others avoid it because they're shy or simply communicating in their own style. The important part is the overall pattern. Do these moments repeatedly happen alongside growing comfort, longer conversations, and genuine interest in each other's company? If they do, you're no longer looking at isolated behaviors. You're looking at a connection that's developing through consistency. And consistency is far more reliable than any single secret sign. The strongest relationships rarely begin with dramatic declarations. More often, they begin with two people quietly recognizing each other long before either one has the courage to say what they're feeling. That's why emotionally mature men don't rush to label every smile as attraction or every glance as destiny. They stay observant. They remain respectful. They let repeated actions reveal the truth instead of forcing an answer before the connection has had a chance to grow. Because confidence isn't assuming someone likes you. Confidence is having enough patience to let reality reveal itself. The fifth sign is one that almost feels invisible until you experience it yourself. She remembers the little things, not the obvious things that anyone could recall. The small details you mentioned only once. Maybe you casually said your favorite coffee, a hobby you never get enough time for, the music you listen to when you're stressed, or the story behind an old watch you've worn for years. Weeks later, she brings it up naturally, without hesitation. She didn't remember because she was trying to impress you. She remembered because your words mattered enough to stay with her. Now, be honest. You've probably done the same thing. You remember how she takes her coffee. You remember the movie she recommended. You remember the day she said she had something important coming up. And when that day arrives, you ask about it. That's not coincidence. That's emotional investment. People remember what feels important to them. When attraction is mutual, attention becomes memory. The sixth sign is harder to explain because it isn't about what either of you says. It's about how both of you react when one of you disappears. Think about it. Life gets busy. People miss messages. Schedules change. That's normal. But when two people are becoming emotionally connected, even a short absence feels noticeable. You find yourself wondering how her day went. She asks where you've been. You unexpectedly receive a message that doesn't require any practical reason at all. Just a simple check-in, a funny photo, a random question, a conversation starter that could have waited, but didn't. Why? Because staying connected starts feeling natural. Neither of you wants the connection to fade, simply because there isn't an obvious reason to talk. That's how emotional momentum works. It doesn't depend entirely on circumstances. It creates its own reasons to continue. The seventh sign is often misunderstood. Both of you begin teasing each other in a playful, respectful way. Notice the difference. Not insults. Not games. Not trying to make the other person jealous. Just light-hearted moments that create laughter and familiarity. Playfulness is one of the clearest indicators that comfort is growing. Think back to the people you felt closest to in life. Chances are, laughter became effortless. There was room to joke without worrying that every word would be misunderstood. Mutual attraction often creates exactly that atmosphere. The conversation feels lighter, the smiles come faster, the awkwardness slowly transforms into shared humor. And something interesting happens. You start creating inside jokes, little references that only the two of you understand. To everyone else, they seem meaningless. To both of you, they instantly bring back a memory. That's how connection quietly builds, one shared moment at a time. The eighth sign appears when you both begin encouraging each other without being asked. She notices your progress. You notice hers. When one of you succeeds, the other genuinely seems happy about it. Not because you're trying to earn approval, not because you're competing, because seeing each other do well actually feels rewarding. That's an important distinction. Healthy attraction isn't fueled by insecurity, it's strengthened by admiration. You begin respecting qualities beyond appearance, her kindness, her determination, her sense of humor, her resilience. And she may begin appreciating your consistency, your character, your calmness under pressure, or the way you treat other people. Physical attraction might open the door, but genuine admiration is what keeps both people walking through it. Many men spend so much time searching for dramatic signs that they overlook the quiet ones happening right in front of them. Real mutual attraction rarely feels like a movie scene. It feels like two lives slowly becoming more interested in each other, one conversation, one smile, and one remembered detail at a time. The strongest connections aren't built by chasing certainty. They're built by noticing sincerity and having the patience to let it grow. The ninth sign is something you can feel before you can explain it. The space between you starts to disappear. At first, there is the normal distance people keep with strangers. Conversations are polite, movements are careful, every interaction has an invisible boundary. Then, almost without either of you noticing, that boundary begins to shrink. She stands a little closer during conversations. You naturally match her pace when you're walking together. Neither of you seems eager to end the moment by creating unnecessary distance. This isn't about invading personal space. It's about comfort. People instinctively move closer to those they feel safe around and naturally create distance from those who make them uncomfortable. That's why paying attention to relaxed body language is often more useful than analyzing every word someone says. Notice whether your conversations feel open rather than guarded. Are shoulders relaxed? Are smiles genuine instead of forced? Does the interaction seem easy instead of tense? Comfort has a language of its own. And when attraction is mutual, both people often begin speaking that language without realizing it. The 10th sign appears when you both become more attentive to how you present yourselves around each other. Have you ever caught yourself checking your appearance just before seeing someone? Straightening your shirt, adjusting your posture, running a hand through your hair. Not because you're obsessed with perfection, but because their opinion suddenly matters a little more. Now imagine she's doing something similar. Maybe she fixes her hair before walking over. Maybe she smiles a little brighter when she notices you. Maybe her energy changes ever so slightly once the conversation begins. These are not guarantees of attraction by themselves. People naturally like looking presentable. The difference is the pattern. If both of you consistently seem just a little more aware of yourselves in each other's presence, it may reflect a shared desire to make a good impression, and that desire rarely appears without emotional significance. The 11th sign is one that many men mistake for luck. She includes you in her future plans, not major life decisions, simple things. She says, "You should come with us next time," or "I'll show you that place someday," or "You'd probably enjoy this." Notice the wording. She isn't only talking about today, she's naturally imagining another interaction. You probably do it too. You recommend a movie you'll watch together. You mention an event she'd enjoy. You suggest grabbing coffee sometime without turning it into a dramatic moment. These small invitations reveal something important. Your mind has already made space for each other in the future. And people don't usually picture future moments with someone unless they genuinely enjoy having them in their lives. But here's where many men make a costly mistake. They become so focused on decoding every possible signal that they stop being present. Instead of listening, they're analyzing. Instead of enjoying the conversation, they're searching for proof. Ironically, that anxiety often creates the very awkwardness they were trying to avoid. Confidence isn't built by collecting signs. It's built by staying grounded enough to appreciate the moment without demanding immediate certainty. Because attraction is not a puzzle that must be solved overnight. It's a connection that reveals itself through time. Every genuine interaction gives you more information than any single glance or smile ever could. When you stop chasing perfect certainty, something remarkable happens. You become easier to talk to, more relaxed, more authentic, and authenticity is incredibly attractive. People are naturally drawn toward those who don't seem desperate for validation. The strongest men aren't the ones who assume every interaction is romantic. They're the ones who remain respectful, emotionally aware, and patient enough to let mutual interest unfold at its own pace. Because when attraction is real, it doesn't need to be forced. It has a quiet way of becoming impossible to ignore. The 12th sign is one that reveals itself when life doesn't go according to plan. Pay attention to how she responds when something unexpected happens. Maybe your plans change. Maybe a conversation gets interrupted. Maybe one of you has a stressful day. If the attraction is mutual, the connection usually doesn't disappear when things become inconvenient. Instead, both of you make small efforts to keep it alive. She says, "We'll catch up another time." You reply, "Looking forward to it." Neither of you treats the interruption like the end of the story. Because when someone genuinely enjoys your company, temporary distance doesn't erase genuine interest. It simply postpones the next conversation. That's a subtle but meaningful difference. The 13th sign is the way both of you react to each other's success. Imagine sharing good news, a promotion, a personal achievement, a goal you've been working toward for months. Someone who feels connected to you doesn't respond with indifference. They celebrate with you. They ask questions. They want to know how it happened. Their excitement feels sincere rather than forced. Now think about your own reaction when she accomplishes something important. Do you genuinely feel proud of her? Do you hope she continues succeeding? If your answer is yes, your attention has already moved beyond simple attraction. You're beginning to admire who she is becoming. Healthy relationships grow stronger when admiration exists in both directions. Without admiration, attraction often fades. With admiration, attraction gains depth. That's why emotionally mature connections aren't built only on chemistry, they're built on respect. The 14th sign is perhaps the most overlooked of all. Silence becomes comfortable. Most people think strong chemistry means constant conversation. Not necessarily. When two people feel at ease with each other, they don't feel pressured to fill every second with words. You can sit together, walk together, drive somewhere together. And even during quiet moments, nothing feels awkward. There's no frantic search for the next topic. No panic because the conversation paused. The silence itself becomes peaceful. That kind of comfort is difficult to fake. It develops over time through trust, familiarity, and emotional safety. Many men spend years searching for exciting conversations while overlooking the quiet moments that reveal the strongest connections. Because excitement captures attention. Comfort builds relationships. Then comes the 15th sign, the one that quietly ties every other sign together. Neither of you is trying to become someone else. Around many people, we wear masks. We carefully choose our words. We hide our flaws. We try to appear more impressive than we really are. But around someone with whom attraction is becoming mutual, those masks slowly begin to disappear. You laugh more naturally. She expresses herself more honestly. Neither of you feels the constant need to perform. You don't have to pretend you've never failed. She doesn't have to pretend everything in her life is perfect. Authenticity replaces performance, and that's where genuine connection begins, because attraction may capture someone's attention, but authenticity is what earns their trust. Here's the lesson most men learn far too late. The healthiest relationships rarely begin with dramatic games or impossible-to-read signals. They begin with two people consistently choosing honesty, curiosity, respect, and emotional presence. Every smile, every remembered detail, every comfortable silence, every conversation that somehow lasts longer than expected. Individually, these moments might seem ordinary. Together, they tell a much bigger story. A story that doesn't need grand declarations to be meaningful. A story that grows because both people continue showing up, not perfectly, but genuinely. And genuine connection has a quiet strength that no performance can ever replace. Now take a moment and think about every sign you've just heard. Not one of them demanded that you read someone's mind. Not one of them required guessing hidden intentions. And not one of them suggested that a single smile, glance, or conversation is enough to know exactly how another person feels. That's because real attraction isn't built on isolated moments. It's built on consistent patterns. Too many men spend years searching for a magical signal that removes all uncertainty. They want one unmistakable sign that guarantees success before they ever take a small emotional risk. But life doesn't usually work that way. Connection isn't a contract, it's a process. And the men who build meaningful relationships understand something that others often miss. They stop chasing certainty and start paying attention to consistency. If someone enjoys talking with you, makes time for you, remembers the little things, seems comfortable around you, and repeatedly chooses to stay connected, those patterns deserve your attention. If those patterns aren't there, forcing them won't create something genuine. That realization isn't discouraging, it's freeing. Because it means you no longer have to overanalyze every message, every pause, or every interaction. You can simply observe what happens over time, and time has a remarkable way of revealing the truth. Here's another lesson worth remembering. Confidence isn't walking into every room believing everyone will be attracted to you. Confidence is knowing that your value doesn't depend on whether one particular person is. That shift changes everything. When your self-worth no longer depends on someone else's response, you become calmer. You listen more carefully. You smile more naturally. You stop trying to impress and start trying to understand. Ironically, that's often when your most authentic qualities become visible. People are drawn to those who are genuinely interested, rather than desperately seeking approval. Think about the strongest people you've ever met. They probably weren't the loudest. They weren't constantly trying to prove themselves. They carried themselves with quiet confidence. They respected others. They respected themselves. And they understood that meaningful relationships cannot be rushed. The same principle applies here. If mutual attraction exists, you don't need to force every conversation into a dramatic turning point. You don't need to manufacture mystery. You don't need to play emotional games. You simply continue showing up as your best self. You communicate honestly. You stay respectful. And when the time feels right, you allow your intentions to become clear in a considerate and genuine way, while also respecting whatever answer the other person gives. That approach protects something far more valuable than your pride. It protects your character, because character is remembered long after first impressions fade. And whether this connection grows into a relationship or simply remains a meaningful chapter in your life, you will know that you handled it with maturity instead of fear. So the next time you find yourself wondering whether the attraction might be mutual, don't search for one perfect clue. Look for the pattern. Look for consistency. Look for comfort. Look for genuine curiosity flowing in both directions. Most importantly, don't become so focused on decoding another person's feelings that you forget to build a life you're proud of living. The strongest attraction often grows towards someone who already has purpose, integrity, and emotional balance. Become that man. Not because it guarantees someone's affection, but because it guarantees you'll respect the person looking back at you in the mirror. And if you found yourself recognizing someone throughout this video, don't rush the story. Some of the best relationships don't begin with dramatic confessions. They begin with two people who quietly notice each other. Until one day, the silence finally gives way to an honest conversation.